Well, hello there, YouTube viewer. I have a question for you. Do you like bees? Well, welcome to the channel. If you're new, I'm Salt and Petty. You can call me Salt. And we like to discuss Commander here. Lots of commanders, commander cards, and commander decks. And today we're going to be discussing a commander deck that I recently spruced up and I have been enjoying quite a lot. Honestly, it's been all I've been playing for the last few weeks, so I wanted to share it here with you. Because of that, this is going to be a little bit of a different deck tech type of video. Usually I like to do a little bit of a more overview where we kind of just talk about some of the cards, some of the strategies, and it's all fancy dancy. Well, today we're going to be doing a full deck walkthrough, meaning I'm going to be going to the corner, we're going to scroll through the full deck list, we're going to talk about everything, all the different strategies, chit chat, and have a good time together. So if that sounds nice, let's get into it. And maybe like the video, maybe subscribe, I'll ask you again at the end after you see how cool the deck is. Okay, let's get into it, enough time. We are here. Alright, so we are going to be going over our commander first. We're playing Xira, the Golden Sting. For one, a black, a red, and a green. She is a 3/3 flying haste insect assassin that reads whenever she attacks, put an egg counter on another target creature without an egg counter on it, and when that creature dies, if it has an egg counter on it, draw a card, create a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. Now, the first question is obviously going to be, why Xira? Why did I pick Xira to lead a Gen Token deck? And to be honest, there's 3 reasons. One, flying. I always love having a flying commander. I think that's really important, and I think that it's only continuing to be more important. Second, she draws cards, and third, she makes tokens. So she's a flying commander that draws cards and makes tokens. And not only does she make tokens, she makes flying tokens. So there's a lot of good synergy here. Now, I do just want to get one thing out of the way. I know that there's some Xira brews that focus as a sort of aristocratic strategy, and that's definitely strong. That's definitely something you can do. That is not what I'm looking to do. Like I said, the title's The Swarm. My goal is to summon a big swarm of, insects, oozes, tyranids, etc., and send them at my enemies. So, yeah. That's what our commander does. As you can see, we are running 27 creatures and a planeswalker. So let's kind of get into first our creature strategy. Now, obviously our commander's 4 mana, so we're going to spend our early turns looking to set up. Birds of Paradise, obviously, is a great 1-drop mana. Deathrite Shaman gives us mana, gives us some damage, great card. Ignoble Hierarch, again, another 1-drop that can ramp us. And Tinderwall is actually arguably maybe the best 1-drop we have in the deck. Let's go over Tinderwall real quick. For 1 green, it is a 0/3 defender that reads sacrifice Tinderwall to get the 2 red, and that's all that we care about. We don't really care about the second text. Maybe we care about the second text per se if our commander is already out and it gives us something to put an egg counter on that we can then sack immediately, but we can always just sack it to add the 2 red mana. Why I really like Tinderwall is because if you play Tinderwall turn 1, if on turn 2, as long as we just have any kind of black source, Tinderwall allows us to play our commander turn 2. Because obviously we need a green to play Tinderwall, so turn 2 we play any type of land that can tap for a black. We have green, we have black, and then we have red and 1 with Tinderwall. So Tinderwall is amazing. Obviously, also amazing, Bloom Tender doesn't really need me to vouch for it. I obviously Tri-Belder's in here. In addition to being just a strong, typical ramp piece, again, same sort of thing with Tinderwall, as that it's a creature that can sacrifice itself whenever we want, so if we happen to put an egg counter on it, we can immediately sack to get some value. And get a flying blocker if we need. Now, with the early game strategy being ramp, we also have Questing Druid who's here to give us a little bit of card value, and Joriel. Now, Joriel, obviously as a 2-drop, is not looking to ramp us or give us card advantage, but she is looking to make tokens for our card advantage. She's also an extremely powerful finisher for us because we're going to be drawing a good amount of cards in this deck, obviously from Xira's trigger, but from a few other things as well. We'll get into those in a moment. But to be able to turn a wide board state, even if we have 4 or 5, 1/1s or 2/2s, being able to turn those into 5/5s or 6/6s with Joriel, very powerful. If you watched the talk about rare commanders and stuff, I've already talked about Joriel some. I think she's great. Now, obviously, we're going to need some card draw, as we said, if we want to get that Joriel value. That's why we've got, obviously, the Beast Whisperer here. Whenever we cast creature spells, we'll draw a card. We have Toski. Toski's going to be super great for us, allows our flying insects to get in for cards really easy, allows our commander to draw his cards because she's flying haste really easy, and that's the exact same reason that I'm running Gix Yawgmoth Praetor. Honestly, Toski was so good, I was looking to just double that effect as best I could, and Gix seemed to be, to me, the closest. I don't know if you guys have any other potential Toski dupes, because we want this effect as much as possible. We're trying to get a lot of tokens. We want to be getting cards because we want to be turning these little bodies into as much possible value as we can get. So those are some ways to do that. In addition, obviously early game we have some additional token makers in Turvagon, which I like this because this can scale. It's a 1 and a green for a X creature that has Ravenous and Trample, and when he deals combat damage to a player, we create that many 1/1 green Tyranid creature tokens. Obviously, I don't really need to explain why that is good. It just kind of seems clear, plus it's flexible. I like that it can also cantrip us a card if we pay big into it, so pretty nice. And again, the built-in trample. Hornet Nest is an amazing defensive piece. It is an 0/2 defender that can sit on the board and basically says, do not swing this way. Do not swing this way, because you're going to get screwed if you do. And it also synergizes really well with the Blasphemous Act, spoiler alert, that we're running, so we could get 13 Bs potentially with Hornet Nest in play. Obviously, if we're making a Swarm, Scoot Swarm is auto-include in this deck. He is a very powerful token maker. Even if he's not making copies of himself, we've still got a lot of synergies with the 1/1 tokens themselves, so clear include here. Kind of exactly how I felt about Arasta. Arasta is a 3/5 with Reach for 4 mana that reads whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, make a 1/2 spider with Reach. Great card. Again, we're looking to get as many tokens as play as possible, and these cards that are able to just passively generate us tokens are really going to start adding up. Xira can be a little tricky because, yes, in the beginning of the game, we're looking to literally plant our eggs and kind of develop, but we can start, once that's done, we can really start moving quite quickly. You know, we can get a couple eggs in. One board wipe could really go from nothing to 3 eggs hatching 3 cards. Or if we get a Rost out and opponents are just casting slinging spells, we're just passively making more and more tokens, which then hopefully, again, we're using stuff like Gix or Toski to turn into card draw. So again, lots of value. Speaking of passive and accrued value, Bio-Waste Blob is here. Now, arguably, this is a card that I could see some people maybe taking out if you build this and you want to make it a little bit more aggressive. I've not personally put any game changers in this brew, so I could see maybe this being one someone looks at to maybe replace. I really do enjoy this card though. For 4, it is a 0/0 that reads ooze creatures you control get +1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a commander, create a token that's a copy of it. Now, this is obviously going to be really slow on the first 1 or 2 turn rotations, but if this is in play with anything that is able to either double tokens to make it move quickly, or it's just able to kind of avoid removal, this thing goes from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to like it really goes exponentially, and it gets bigger and bigger as it goes. Obviously, it just takes some time. This is typically not a card I find people point removal at, so there is that, but again, it's not got any kind of protection, so it's an interesting piece. But speaking of protection, I guess, right next to it we have Sereth the Viper's Fang. Other tapped creatures we control have Death Touch, and untapped creatures we control have Hexproof. This is great. This basically gives all of our attacking tokens Death Touch, which is exactly what we want to ensure that we're getting those card draws, to ensure we're getting through for damage. And she protects our most important pieces that are sitting on our board passively generating value, like our Arasta, or like our Bio-Waste Blob, by giving them Hexproof for being untapped. I also really enjoy the fact that she gives us the availability to untap our commander, so we can Flying Haste swing hit, use her untapper, so that way our commander is hexproof and now able to block as a flyer. I think Sereth just goes really good in this deck, a lot of synergy. Obviously, you could replace this with Orin Frostfang or include Orin Frostfang, but I know Orin Frostfang is a little bit of a more expensive include. I know people are going to be mentioning that when I'm talking about Gix and Toski. So yes, Orin Frostfang you could absolutely include in this deck, but I think Sereth's a little bit more of a budget choice, and this is I mean, it's not a super budget friendly deck, but it's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle, okay? Continuing on with that though, we're gonna move into our 5 drops. We've got 1 big 5 drop for each color. Honestly though, now that I've said Orin Frostfang, I can't believe I didn't think about that before. I would include Orin Frostfang in this deck. Probably, maybe you want to replace the Bio-Waste Blob, but Or you could maybe replace one of these 5-drops. Death Tyrant is amazing. I think this card is really slept on, but for us being a Jund token deck, it is really nice. This is one of the big reasons that I wanted to include black. It's a 4/6 for 5. It has menace, and whenever an attacking creature we control or a blocking creature an opponent controls dies, we create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And then we can pay 6 to return it from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Now that little secondary ability is very sneaky. Don't let that pass you by. For some reason this gets milled, if this gets discarded, or even if it just gets removed. If you're leaving up some mana and then you see your opponent's got some, they clash into each other, they got a lot of blocks. Okay, before damage and response, I'm gonna pay 6, return Death Tyrant, let all that resolve and make some zombies because you guys killed each other. That is some great value. Also, again, it's the availability to pay 6 and get a 5-drop just from your graveyard. Like, the cost increase for playing it from your graveyard is very little, so very strong. Elder Gargaroth, obvious powerhouse. For 5 mana, you get a 6/6 Vigi, Reach, Trample, can make us tokens, can draw us cards, can even gain us life, kind of does absolutely everything we are looking to do, so of course that's included. And then lastly, and this is a more fresh include, so I'm excited to talk about this, this is Rionia Fire Dancer. You know, she is a little bit of a more expensive card, so if you're looking for a more budget brew, she's one you could easily kick out. She reads, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create X tokens that are copies of another target creature you control, where X is 1, plus the number of instant and sorcery spells you've cast this turn. They gain haste, exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Now, I know this might seem a little bit weird because this isn't a super spell slingy deck, but the thing is we don't need to get insane value out of the amount of casts because Rionia's targets are going to be extremely high value. Everything beyond Rionia and mana value is going to be a great target. So let's just talk about all of those to preface. So obviously Grave Titan for 6 mana, when he enters, he makes 2/2 zombies. Great target for Rionia. Also a 6/6 death touch in himself. Old One-Eye, another great target, because when he enters, he makes a 5/5, so we'd get 2 5/5s, even though we would lose an Old One-Eye to the legendary rule. This guy has trample, he gives our other creatures trample, and like Death Tyrant, has a way to return from the graveyard. Now, granted, his is a little bit steeper. We have to discard 2 cards, and he comes to our hand, so we do still have to recast him. So definitely not as powerful as the Death Tyrant in terms of reanimation, but it's still a flexible way to potentially get trample back if we need it back. Or, hey, if we just have nothing else to do. We drew 2 lands, I ain't got nothing, discard them, draw Old One, I'd play it. You know, it's something. Rampaging Balos. Now, arguably this one obviously is clearly not as strong as a pick, but if you make a copy of Raging Balos, then we play our lands, we got 2 Raging Balofs, we're making 2 per land. There's definitely some value there. Now, Thunderfoot Baloth, though, obviously a powerhouse, gives our creatures +2/2 and trample if we control our commander, which we very often will, so we copy this, it becomes an even bigger anthem effect. Heck, if we even get 1 or 2 copies of this, that'd be insane. Now, obviously, Beledros, I don't need to really disclaim why Beledros is in here. He's a flying creature that ramps us by letting us pay life. He makes tokens every single upkeep, and they're tokens that heal us, mind you, so he's great. Now, Hornet Queen and Sumberwald Beastmaster are going to be the 2 that are actually really, really powerful triggers with Rionia. I'd say Grave Titan, Sumberwald, Hornet Queen, Thunderfoot, all 4 of them powerhouse choices. Because, I mean, obviously, and Bio-Waste Blob, to be honest. But Hornet Queen, obviously, when she enters, makes 4 1/1s, so we make a copy, make 4 more 1/1s. Sumberwald Beastmaster, though, makes a 2/2, a 3/3, and a 4/4, and she gives all of our creature tokens Death Touch. Obviously, some of our creature tokens are going to have Death Touch, like from the Hornet Queen or like from the Hornet Nest, but a lot of them won't. Giving Death Touch to our spiders, giving Death Touch to our oozes or tyranids, there's a lot of value there. Even the zombies from Grave Titan. So, yeah, that's our creature suite. A lot of creatures, or all of our creatures are looking to do basically one of 3 things. Card advantage, make tokens, ramp. Those are the goals of our cards. Those are the goal of our creatures specifically. Now, obviously, as with Rionia, we need to have instants and sorceries to cast for our ability to be very good. So let's just kind of take a moment. Let's scroll down to our instants and sorceries. We've got 18 total. Faithless Looting, obviously, for some card advantage. Nature's Lore, 3 visits for ramp. Painful Truths, great card advantage. Now, Damnation, Blasphemous Act, Board Wipe. Don't have to talk too much on those. I do want to take a moment to discuss Eldritch Evolution. This allows us to sacrifice a creature to search our library for a creature that's equal to that creature's mana value +2 and put it into play. This is a great way to either, if we need to doom kill our commander, I typically like to go for the Grave Titan because it's an instant board state in a bottle. You could do the same thing with Old One Eye. Again, this is kind of leaning into the effect that we have a lot of these kind of ETB create token cards. So that's really what we're looking to do with Eldritch Evolution, is to try to grab something that can create tokens with us. If we don't have a lot of mana or we have a low mana thing, we could maybe go for a Rasta, go for Scoot Swarm. If we've got more, again, mana, go for Grave Titan, go for Hornet Queen, go for the Beastmaster. I like Seasons Past. I think it's kind of a little bit slept on. Obviously, it's a 6-mana card, so it's a little bit mana intensive, but the availability to return any number of cards with different converted mana costs from our graveyard to hand is really good. That could be a full grip. And we have a pretty diverse mana values in our deck. As you can see, we've got a consistent 1 through 7. We've got a 9 with Blasphemous Act, so we've got a good variety of mana values in the deck. So I do think Seasons Past something we can get a lot of value off of, and it puts itself in the graveyard, or not in the graveyard, in the library, so that's pretty neat. Now, Vivian Stampede is a card that I really don't think people talk about or play. Now, again, you could replace this with Cradle of Behemoth any day of the week and it'd be fine, but I think this is cool. I think it's fun. Each creature we control gains Vigilance, Trample, and Melee until end of turn, which reads whenever a creature with melee attacks, it gets +1/1 for each of your opponents you are attacking this combat. So we can play Vivian Stampede, give all of our creature tokens Vigilance, Trample, Melee, swing out. This will reward just for swinging at everybody, so basically it gives them all +3/3. And then it also reads at the beginning of the next main phase this turn, draw a card for each player who is dealt damage this turn. So it could also potentially, and more than likely will, get us 3 cards. So give our whole board 3/3 Vigilance and Trample and draw 3 cards is just, I don't know, it just seems really good. It seems a little bit slept on. I know obviously there's some bigger finishers, but +3/3 Trample is kind of huge. And Vigilance allows us to still defend if they do survive. So it's kind of winning for me all around, and that's why I included it here. Obviously, again, Blasphemous Act is a great board wipe. Usually I like to run 3. This deck I'm running 2 because we are a more board state heavy type of thing. Pest Infestation is kind of feeling what I would consider my other board wipe slot, because this is just a big targeted thing that destroys a bunch of artifacts and enchantments and also makes us some pests in the process. For our instance, we're running some high impact instants. I gotta say, I like our suite. Assassin's Trophies, great spot removal, destroys anything that we need to be destroyed. And I like that flexibility. Obviously, Heroic Intervention will protect us. I love Arachnogenesis. I think there's an argument that you could maybe run Obscuring Haze here, or obviously Moment's Peace that I love to talk about. But Arachnogenesis is a token-making fog effect, and I think that obviously is exactly what we want to do. I think fog effects are really strong because, again, they stop damage triggers, they stop life gain from the lifelink. This one also gives us a board state the way, Ink Shield is kind of like, Ink Shield obviously is stronger than Arachnogenesis, but Arachnogenesis is that blueprint. Then Beast Within, again, destroy target permanent, very powerful line of text. Deflecting Swap might be one of my favorite cards in all of Magic. I love the parry. I talked about that in my last video about cards that I'm thankful for, and this is one of them. Baleful Mastery I really like because this is a little bit of a political removal piece. Allows us to exile something that's really problematic and maybe gain a friend in the process. And if we are really not able to gain a friend in the process, we can always just pay the 4 and just deal with something. Same thing kind of with Force of Vigor. I like the availability of payment. I can either pay for or I can wait and exile something to destroy stuff for free, which I think that's really important in this deck. Cards like Deflecting Swap, cards like Force of Vigor, because our deck has the availability to draw cards on other people's turns or just on random events, because obviously our commander's putting those eggs in things and we're not always necessarily in control of when those eggs hatch. So if we're in a pickle and we draw a card and we're tapped out, it's nice to have a couple options of cards that we could still potentially play, worst case scenario. It's like, I'm tapped out, but if I do draw that Deflecting Swat or if I do draw that Force of Vigor right now, I'm in a much better spot because X, Y, and Z. Obviously, sometimes that's a little bit niche, but I think niche moments happen in Commander and in Magic in every single game, they could happen, but a lot of people don't run the cards because they're like, oh, well, that's niche. But again, The idea that we're gonna draw cards on our opponent's turns is not that crazy in this deck, so I feel like we can play to that. And then lastly, Zot's Will. I think this is a powerhouse card. Let's just kind of read it. If we control a commander, we get both. You know, I love the boths. For 5, this instant is each opponent attacks a creature they control with the greatest power. And then exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards, which I love, and create X01 black thralls, where X is the greatest power among creature cards exiled this way. Typically, this will range between 4 to 6, but sometimes I've had this be 11, sometimes I've had this be an Eldrazi, and it's like 13. Regardless, even if this is like 6, we have a lot, again, of effects that buff our board state. Vivian Stampede, Thunderfoot Baloth, and those little O1s are now going to be big because of those types of effects. So it's a nice way to quickly get bodies. And another thing that those thralls are really good at supercharging, we'll kind of skip ahead, is the Beastmaster Ascension. Obviously, we're running Beastmaster Ascension in this deck. We're a go white token strategy, so this is like classic win con for it, and the thralls are a very quick and powerful way to get Beastmaster Ascension charged up. Also, speaking of just kind of big board state finishers that we're looking at, Eldrazi Monument is one, giving our creatures flying and indestructible, and in exchange you have to sacrifice a creature on our upkeep. But again, flying indestructible 1/1, so we get 5 thralls, we drop an Eldrazi Monument, those 5 thralls are now 1/2 flying indestructibles. That's pretty nice. And God forbid we have any kind of token doubler. Obviously now, since we're talking about our enchantments, let's just pivot to them. Bitter Blossom, powerhouse, early easy drop. We can drop a Bitter Blossom, then we can play our commander, and if there's no other creatures in play, we can at least have that fairy to put the egg thing in. But again, these are just flying tokens that we can use to trigger our Toski, trigger our Gix, get some value, and then also just have his big beaters for when we need them. Sylvan Library is a powerhouse draw effect. This one, obviously, I'm a little bit like on because it requires so much life if you really want to make the use of it. But that's why I did end up including Whip of Erebos in this deck. Again, we have a lot of powerful ETBs, so the resurrection effect on Whip of Erebos could be used quite well if we late game resurrect any one of our big ETB token makers. But also the availability for 4 mana to give our whole board state lifelink is really powerful. I feel like that's something that, as being a Jund token player, our availability and access to black, this is kind of one of those things we can push our advantage in, like the Grave Titan, Whip of Erebos. Like, these are things that other big token decks don't have access to, and so we should take advantage of our availability to access it. And then since we're up here, we'll just Esseka's Chariot, obviously include 4 mana to make 2/2/2s, and then the availability to crew and start copying our bigger tokens. Can't pass up on that. Now let's look at Rhythm of the Wild. Since obviously we're going to be casting a lot of creature spells, we want them to be able to resolve, and the availability to give our commander a +1/1 when she enters, or the flexibility of haste or counters for our other creatures is quite nice. Obviously our tokens are not going to benefit from this, but that would be way too busted, so I'm not even too mad at that. Now, Court of Embereth is a fun, unsuspecting actual backup win condition, which is why it's in here. It seems kind of random. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 3/1 Red Knight creature token, and then if we are the Monarch, which Court of Embereth will make us the Monarch when it enters, it will deal X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures we control. So even if for some reason our board state's not able to get through right now, if we're still able to go just wide, Court of Embereth will reward us for that. This is also one of those nice situations where, yes, let's say we get a bunch of thralls that are just sitting there and they're defending for us. Well, now those 5 thralls are 5 extra damage with Court of Embereth. Token doublers, of course, Parallel Lives is going to be the strongest token doubler, and then I'm running Doubling Season, but I do feel like this could maybe be a different token doubling effect. I feel like Doubling Season, we're not taking advantage of the counters as much, because our commander doesn't care if there's 2 egg counters on something, or at least on the same thing anyways. So I feel like we're not getting as much value out of that. I just don't know really what I would replace this with. So if you've got any suggestions, let me know. I was thinking maybe something like Chatterfang, but I haven't really thought about it too much. And lastly, let's just talk about Oubliette. I think Oubliette's amazing because this is the way to deal with an annoying ass commander and they don't go anywhere. I used to have Song of the Dryads, but I started getting annoyed because it was ramping people. So I replaced Song of the Dryads with oubliette because, again, we have access to black. Let's take advantage of our access to black, and I'm going to just phase out your stinking commander. And what's really nice is if they're like a Voltron-y commander, or if they have a lot of equipment attached to the creature we phase out, all that equipment phases out with it. So it's kind of just like, bye. And for some weird reason as well, if they do deal with oubliette, the creature comes in tapped. Sometimes that's not super relevant, but sometimes it is. And then lastly, we do have 38 lands total in the deck. It's a pretty standard land ramp kind of synergy. We just run in some goodies, obviously the Triumph, a couple fetches. One thing I would note is I tried to keep this mana base a little bit more green. That's why there's not as many Rakdos lands. Like obviously there's a couple, but this is a super green heavy deck, as you can see from our mana symbols here. It's a very green deck, so we wanted to try to focus on making sure we had lots of lands that had access to green, whether that was green red, green black, but yeah. And then I guess we should talk about Vivian. As always, I like to include one planeswalker, so that is Ms. Vivian Reed here. She is a baddie that's just gonna help us kind of look through our deck to get some cards, try to get us some creatures that we can cast. I like that she's able to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Creature but flying, meh, but hey, sometimes that matters. And obviously her ult is extremely game winning with this deck. It has the availability to go big boom. Now I guess that's one thing that I am kind of like, I have the doubling season in the deck for, is I like the availability that we can play Vivian in instant ultra for a much stronger version of Eldrazi Monument. But it is pretty niche, so it's not like that's going to happen super often, and both the cards are a little mana intensive. But again, I like to have the options of availability in games, because that gives us room to maneuver each situation as they come. But yeah, that is our Xira the Golden Sting deck, or my Xira the Golden Sting deck. Maybe yours if you decide to brew it. What do you think about it? You like it? Is it fun? Is it neat? And actually, hold on, let's get to the proper closer. Okay, yes, this is the end of the video. So what did you think? Did you like the Xira deck? I've had so much fun brewing this deck. I find a lot of people have a lot of fun playing against the deck. You're playing really cool cards, but you're not doing anything that feels unfair or cheaty. It's very, I'm gonna brew up this killer swarm and I'm gonna swarm you and you're gonna die, hopefully. And I think that's a lot of fun, and I like the engagement of Xira with the eggs, and there's a lot of layers to it. And that's what I find fun about this. What edits would you make to this? Are you gonna brew this deck? How do you feel about Jund tokens in general? Should we just be doing Naya tokens? But everybody does Naya tokens, so I feel like Jund tokens is a fun take. And again, gives us access to some pretty neat black cards. As always, we're gonna look to be making videos every Sunday here. We're talking commanders, talking cards, talking strategy. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, you should hit the subscribe button. Actually, you should beat up the subscribe button. Like this. Just punch the crap out of the subscribe button and help us get to 500. We're getting close. We're a little YouTuber here for Magic the Gathering, and despite being small, I gotta say, I like to think that our information is mighty. But with that, I'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your week, enjoy playing Commander, and reminder, y'all, just because you don't like someone's win condition doesn't mean they're playing Commander wrong. Okay, bye.